that's the beauty about these animals. There's a lot of diversity in their genes that do exhibit in nature as well, but because of environmental pressures like predation, the color of the river sand, the color of the sediment, the type of debris that might be on it, the color of the leaf sedimentation, all these things dictates what color these animals are. That doesn't mean that their fry can be different. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Malik. Welcome back to Malik's Water Garden. In this video, we're going to look at some of the follow-up questions you guys had on our hybrids, crossbreeds, and what is a species video. And we're going to basically clarify some of the questions you had and talk more deeply into that. Just look at what a hybrid is compared to what a crossbreed is, and what is naturally available, and why I fully think that crossing different subspecies or different collection points is not in your favor. Also, making hybrids is completely not in your favor. Now we're going to look at all these things in this video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe down below, hit the notification icon, and stay tuned so you get updated on follow-up videos on this as well as many other interesting topics and all the other fish that I have in the fish room. So in today's video, we're going to look at what a crossbreed and a hybrid are. So for the purpose of this video, we're going to define the difference between a crossbreed and a hybrid. A true hybrid is something that is not viable. A true hybrid is a hybrid of two separate species. So we talked about this in detail in the last video. I highly suggest you check that out. I'll put a link to that at the end of this as well as up here. What is a hybrid and what is a crossbreed? A hybrid is something that is between two separate species that is of the same genre. So for example, a hypancestral zebra is a species on its own. It's described, it is a separate species from all other known hypancestrals, okay? As well as all other known Pleco types. So hypancestral zebra is its own species. Now I have hypancestral furunculus, which is the L199. They're also called Orinoco zebra Plecos. They're very similar looking, although the hypancestral furunculus is a little bit larger. Can these two animals live in the same tank? Probably not a good idea, because they are two separate species. They're defined as a separate species because they're genetically different from all other described species. Okay, so the hypancestral furunculus is a completely different species, although they're both in the same genre, Hypancestris, or genus Hypancestris. They are two separate species. One is the Hypancestris furunculus, one is the Hypancestris zebra. So the two separate species cannot cross and create a viable hybrid, okay, a viable baby. Now it's like creating a zebra, crossing a zebra and a horse. They're two separate species, and their baby will not be able to reproduce the next generation, okay? So you don't want to keep these two separate species in the same tank. The same thing applies for other types of described types of hypancestras. So you have a Hypancestris furunculus and you have a L333 king tiger pleco. You probably don't want to keep these two in the same tank because they could potentially create a hybrid, like a true hybrid, which is going to be not viable. A crossbreed is not a true hybrid. It's the same thing though. You don't want to keep any of the numbered fish, any numbered hypancestras that are from different collection points. You don't want to keep them in the same tank with another numbered hypancestral species from a different collection point, because what happens is they are going to create what is called a crossbreed. Now, what is a crossbreed and what is a hybrid? A hybrid is a cross between two separate distinct species. They are genetically not compatible enough to make a viable baby. I explained this quite in detail in the last video, so I highly recommend you check that out, as well as check out Richard Dawkins' video, which I linked in that video as well. Now, a crossbreed is what we get when you take two subspecies or two different locale populations What are locale populations? A type of animal that might live in one island, and the same type of animal that lives in another island that has been separated for several thousand years geographically, but genetically they're pretty similar. They might have changed a little bit physiologically. The one might have gotten a little bit bigger, one might have gotten a little smaller, one might have gotten a little darker, one might have gotten a little lighter, but physiologically they're still more or less the same animal. So they can still crossbreed and create a cross. And those fry are genetically viable. It's like crossing a redfoot and a yellowfoot. It's commonly done in the hobby, but it's not in your favor. Why is this not in your favor? Now we're going to look at some of the L340 fry in this tank, and you're going to see some diversity in the fry. These are all F1. They're all pure fry from similar looking parents that were all collected together and that was all sold together as a group. I bought 13 of them and I have 9 left. Or I bought 12 actually. I bought 12 fish in total. I bought 10 small ones and 2 adult males, like about 3 inches long. They don't get much bigger than that, so that's how big these animals get. I've seen quite a bit of crossbreeds between the L340 and the L236 super whites, because the L340 is a really nice dark black fish and the L230 super white is a really white nice patterned fish with reduced markings mostly, and then there's like little spots in here and there, like little lines and stuff. It's a very striking looking fish. So they've been crossed together to create crossbreed fry. Now I've seen some spectacular looking fry out of the crosses. I'm not going to deny that, but the breeder has lost the genetic diversity that exists in this population. Okay, this population is an isolated population of fish, and there's a lot of genetic diversity in these 9 or 10 animals, or the entire group of the L340 group that you can find wherever their locale is, that they're all collected from the river, and they have a lot of diversity in them. But that diversity is not always expressed in the actually living species. Why is that? I always wonder, you know, the reason for that more or less is because if there's a striking fish, these fish are all black with little stripes, bits of yellow here and there. They're not striking at all. They're like the most drab, most unattractive looking Pleco I own in my entire fish room. They are spectacular. Most people go goo goo gaga when they see them, but to me, I have a lot more spectacular looking fish. I was actually going to sell this group. This is the honest truth. Because they're just black and plain doesn't mean that their fry are all going to be black and plain. I'll show you some of the fry, and you'll see that a lot of the fry are actually quite spectacular. They have, even at a very small age, they have striking patternings. They have a lot of white coverage. They don't have a lot of black coverage. There's a few that are very striking and stand out quite distinctly. Why do we not find these in nature? Because those distinctly striking fry cannot survive in nature, so they don't usually make it to the size that these guys are, and so they never get collected because they usually get predated when they're smaller because they're so striking, right? That doesn't mean that genetic diversity doesn't exist in this population. There is so much diversity that exists in this population that it will exhibit over the generations coming up. So the F1s, the F2s, the F3s will produce some striking looking fish. So I am about to set up a new line of fish out of this group of fish that I purchased, that were all collected together, that all look more or less exactly the same, that are all the same species more or less, given that they are from the same locale, they are the same, you know, type looking fish, same size and all that good jazz. Now they are not described, but when they do get described, I will have several lines that are originated from this main group. And if I were to cross an L236 into this group, I would lose all of that diversity. So I would potentially lose several lines of strikingly looking fish that are completely different from the L236 line, that are completely different from the L333 lines, that are completely different from the other lines of hypancestors that are line bred that are available for you guys. Now, and as well as some of the wild populations that come into the hobby that don't look that striking. Now, that's the beauty about these animals. There's a lot of diversity in their genes that do exhibit in nature as well, but because of environmental pressures like predation, the color of the river sand, the color of the sediment, the type of debris that might be on it, the color of the leaf sedimentation. All these things dictates what color these animals are. That doesn't mean that their fry can be different, cannot be the same color. They have to be the same color. Only zebra plecos and a few others have like the same patterning, more or less the same every generation after. Most of these other fish produce so much diversity, and you're losing all that by crossing them. And another thing you don't want to do is, a lot of times people say, oh, these two animals are collected from the same river, the same location, an Hypancestral zebra and L173 or maybe, okay? And I've seen actually a person hybridizing L173s and Hypancestral zebra, and I was just like mortified seeing it, because they're not the same species. They probably can create hybrids, true hybrids, that are not going to be genetically viable, which means they cannot reproduce in next generation. So this person is going to get fry that are going to have all types of markings. He might even sell some of them. He will hold back a bunch and try to reproduce them to his avail. They will not be able to reproduce because they're true hybrids. This is why you shouldn't hybridize your fish. You shouldn't mix them together, because you are putting yourself into a serious situation where you're going to be heartbroken. If I were to get a fry that I cannot reproduce, I would be devastated. This fish is very valuable to me because it's probably the only one that looks just like that in existence. And it's a true super white looking Hypancestral zebra. The zebra plecos that they have the thin lines and all that, the BV line or whatever you call that, they're definitely not a pure Hypancestral zebra, because even at a small size, the striation looks more like a 173 or 174. The 174 line actually. So they're probably a crossbreed between a zebra and a 173 or 174, which is what we were actually, me and another breeder were talking about this. I forgot his name, but we were actually in a conversation, and he sent me the picture, and I said that is definitely not a naturally existing fish. That is a crossbreed. And he said, why do you say that? Because I said the lines on the body resembles that of a lion bred 174, because I've seen lion bred 174s. They look similar to zebras. They're probably a subspecies that is similar to the zebra pleco, and crossing them and creating crossbreeds is not smart, because you might not get something that can be reproduced. So all those fish that you might be buying that are thin line could be just crosses between two separate species or two subspecies that might not even be genetically viable to produce the next generation. So you might spend $800 and buy like a fish, bring it home, grow it up for a year, and then not be able to reproduce it. Stick to the originals. There's so much variety, so much diversity. If you look at these video small clips that I show you guys in here, look at the diversity out of the fry that I got from the same dad and two separate moms. Potentially, I don't even know, because I don't know which moms are breeding. I haven't paid attention to this thing. So much diversity. So once we pull this out, you'll see how much diversity we can get out of a group of fish that comes from the same location, that are looks so plain and not anything to write home about. Okay, so we will be doing that at the end of this breeding season, as well as many other tanks that have fry in them. I have at least 2 tanks now. The L199 has a clutch of eggs, so there should be some fry in there. I just looked at the male just to make sure he's still in the cave. So yeah, thumbs up for him. Give him a like, thumbs up, because he's been working for me hard now. This is his second clutch, and he's doing his work. He's a good boy. So we'll update on them pretty soon, and a lot of new stuff coming up. So subscribe down below, hit the notification icon, and stay tuned, and comment below and let me know what you guys think and what your thoughts are, because I really like to know. All the personal messages are awesome, but commenting here really helps, and subscribing really helps me out, because 65% of you have still not subscribed. So subscribe down below, and as always, thank you so much for your support. There's a lot of valuable content coming out. Stay tuned. You guys know what it is, and watch the rest of my videos. As always, I'll see you on the next video. I love you all. God bless.